Coming up on the Empowered Woman podcast.
Some people are much more introverted, some people are much more extroverted, but just having the confidence to go through life and appreciate who you are and find out what your talents are. Because not everybody's the same. Not everybody's going to have, like I can't just tell people this is what you do. Everybody's going to have to find their way.
Welcome to the Empowered Woman podcast, the #1 show on visibility strategies for women entrepreneurs. If you want to get empowered to be seen, stand out on social media, stages, TV, and more to make an impact with your voice and business, you're in the right place. I'm so glad that you're here. My name is Marcia Spurk, and I'm your host, professional singer and visibility strategist. Welcome again, and let's dive into today's episode.
Looking for the perfect gift that inspires confidence and joy? Me is All I Want to Be by Elizabeth Bruner is a children's book that celebrates individuality, creativity, and self-acceptance. Give the kids in your life a gift that lasts longer than toys or trends, the gift of self-love and confidence. Find the book on Amazon. The link is in the show notes. Hi, Amal. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Good morning, Martha. Thank you so much for having me.
Yay, I am so excited for us to chat. I will give some context for our listeners. I met you because I started taking Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. I am Brazilian, and I was looking for something for my kids to do. My husband did Taekwondo growing up. I had never done anything. And it was a Brazilian friend that recommended Easton. And after many years of trying to fit the schedule, I finally got them going. And then I got to do a class with you a couple months ago. It was like a special class and got to meet the founder, which was super special. And we connected, and I'm excited to hear the backstory of how you've built your empire. So why don't you tell us who you are and what you do, and then we'll get going.
First of all, man, your English is so good. I forgot you were Brazilian. So good work on that. I wish my Portuguese was quite as unaccented.
Yeah, why don't you tell us who you are and what you do? Because I gave you the context, but I'd love for our listeners to know more.
Great. My name is Amal Easton. I was the founder of Easton Training Centers. We have 8 schools now across the Front Range of Colorado. I started my schools in 1998 when I moved back from Brazil. And yeah, that's what I do now. I kind of operate those, train, and raise a family.
Yeah. Oh, that is so amazing. Now I want to hear more about you going to Brazil. Like, tell me more about the jiu-jitsu story, and then getting into starting your own centers and now expanding so much and building all of this amazingness that you have going on here in Colorado.
I mean, I grew up in kind of a little bit of a different, counterculture family a little bit. They were kind of hippies, and they always told me it was more important to be happy than, like the most important thing in your life was just to be happy and enjoy what you did. So I didn't really follow a traditional university route, although I did go to college kind of one semester a year because I wasn't sure what I was going to do. And then in 1998, I actually graduated from 1995. I actually graduated from acupuncture school, and I decided I was going to move to Brazil because I didn't want to, start a 9 to 5. And so I sold all my belongings and I'd saved up a bunch of money working in restaurants through my college, and got on a plane. Didn't really know anybody in Rio. The dollar was super weak, so I didn't realize how broke I was going to be when I showed up. And but there were some pluses to that. There were no other Americans there. Nobody spoke English, so it kind of forced me to speak Portuguese. And I had a unique experience, I think, as everyone does, because of my specific scenario. But yeah, sold everything, moved to Brazil. I ended up staying there almost 4 years, and moved, trained at, there was only kind of one Gracie Baja back then. So I trained with the Gracie family and made a bunch of new friends. All I did there was train. I did a little bit of acupuncture to kind of keep me going. I got hooked up with a great doctor down there who put me to work for him. And yeah, then when I finished, my education in Rio, which was an education in all sorts of ways, I jumped back on a plane, came back to the States. I was from New Mexico originally, which had a kind of depressed economy. So I decided I was going to come to Colorado. It was a more familiar ground. And any Brazilians that were coming to America to teach jiu-jitsu were going to where the oceans were, kind of Florida, Maybe New York, there was Henzo Gracie, my teacher, and California, that was kind of it.
Hmm.
So the mountains were totally open. So I moved to Colorado, started my school, and then that was 25 years ago almost.
Wow.
And maybe more. I don't know. It's too early to do math. But
Yeah.
yeah, since then we've opened, 8 schools. We have thousands of students. I love what I do. I can't really imagine it any other way. I think that we have a hugely positive impact on the community in general, overall.
Yeah.
And we have a ton of great, great staff on our team. And yeah, that's the intro.
That is so cool. So were you already doing jiu-jitsu in America? Why Brazil and then jiu-jitsu? I'm curious about that, those two things.
So I grew up in it was kind of a white minority where I grew up. And so when I went to school, I got picked on a lot. I was a small kid. I graduated super young. I was 16. So my parents put me in martial arts,
Okay.
just kind of to not get, to be able to stand up for myself a little bit.
Mhm.
So I started martial arts at a very young age, like probably 6 years old
Oh.
when the bullying started. And so then I did, all that. And then I discovered jujitsu in about 1991.
Mm.
A guy had moved. There was a small handful of people in the United States teaching jujitsu back then.
Yeah.
And a guy came out to study in Santa Fe randomly he was in the military,
Mhm.
and the family had taught a bunch of military guys, so he had some skills. And it was such a different time because there was no internet. So back then, if you didn't learn from somebody standing in front of you, you didn't learn. So that was really a different time. It's hard to imagine what that was like today.
Right. I know.
Because we have, you can take courses at Harvard for free on your computer from your
Right.
couch
It's such a different
today.
time.
Yeah.
And so was that what inspired you to then go to Brazil, like because you were connected already to the martial art, or was it just because you wanted to
Look,
have the
I was obsessed with jujitsu. I loved it.
Okay.
Like from the first day I did it, I was like, this is for me. This is amazing. I couldn't think of anything else. I couldn't look at like that shirt you're wearing without trying to think about how I'd place my hands to choke you with it. Because I loved the sport. Not,
Yeah.
as you know, that's not like a angry or mean thing. It's just so
Yeah.
fun.
No, I totally.
And I also always I spoke some Spanish growing up, so I spoke
Okay.
reasonable Spanish, but I always really wanted to immerse myself. I'd traveled a fair amount, but I wanted to immerse myself in a language, learn a foreign language. I'd never lived on the ocean, so I wanted to see what it was like to live on the ocean.
Yeah.
So, and I didn't want to go to work, although I just started school,
Hmm.
or just finished school, but 9 to 5, I couldn't even wrap my head around. So,
Yeah.
so I sold all my belongings. I had the greatest garage sale of all time. Sold everything I loved. I didn't know a single person. Anybody I talked to about Brazil in 1995 said, don't go there. It's super dangerous, especially Rio de Janeiro.
Hmm.
Super dangerous. It's super expensive. Like, so that, but literally it got to the point where someone said, my cousin went to Brazil. You should talk to her. And I'd say, no way. Like, keep them away from me, because all they said is don't do it.
Right. Yeah. Oh man. Well, I want to get into the business more, but I would love to explore a little bit, like sort of why you were so obsessed with jujitsu and why, because I understand it now that I've been doing it. It's been exciting that I've been writing some blogs for Easton
Oh,
too.
yay. You got the
In
bug.
in talking about like how it's such a metaphor for life, and even when you think about being an entrepreneur and the challenges that you go through, or parenthood, everything, right? How you handle disappointment, how you handle I don't know, the stories you tell yourself in your mind. So I'd love for you just to share a little bit more for people that are super not familiar with jujitsu and encourage them to maybe give it a try.
I mean, it's like playing chess with your whole body.
Mm.
So there's so many details, and you can overcome a much stronger opponent if you just have the technique to do so.
Right.
It's like picking up a car with a jack.
Mm.
Like Martha, I don't know what you weigh, but you're not a gigantic girl. You're a petite girl. You could pick up a car with a jack, and
Mhm.
jujitsu kind of feels the same way. And so it's just kind of playing chess with your whole body. I've done a lot of sports and a lot of things for maybe a decade or more and gotten reasonably proficient at those things. But I felt like the learning curve really plateaued. Whereas with jujitsu, I feel like every time I study a little bit, it just like blows my mind, like a whole new, series of movements or
Yeah.
that you can actually put into work kind of in a game way. So you're not like, it's not like lifting, weights. It's like you really get engaged in such a way that you kind of lose track of time and all of the, how difficult it is and
Right.
all of that because you're just so in the moment. It's very hard to find something for me that keeps me in the moment for such a sustained period of time.
Yeah, so true. It's an ongoing learning thing, and that's why it's so captivating, I guess, because there's always something new to learn and a different level of understanding as
And
well.
then also just the people it introduces you to, like you get
Yes.
to know people in a different kind of way because you're really working one-on-one in a very, I could say, intimate way with a bunch of different people
Yeah,
of all different, like it really is a unifier. I think it brings a lot of people together,
right.
different, people that you might, I mean, God, if you looked at their online personality, you might hate them already. But it really teaches you that, like, that we as humans have a lot of commonality, and
Absolutely.
that there's, I think, more that unites us than tears us apart. Although in today's age, it's
Yeah,
sometimes we lose track of that.
absolutely. Yeah, there's a whole community aspect and the social aspect of it. So many benefits and so many cool things. Let's talk about the business. So you came back from Brazil, you decided to start the first gym and training center. How how did that go to the point where you started opening up other ones? And you guys also have a program to help people grow their own training centers and gyms as well. Tell me more.
I mean, I always believed and kind of grew up and was taught like, look, try to find something that you can be passionate about. And then if you can be passionate about it, you might not be the best in the world, but you'll be good at it.
Mhm.
And, you should be because you'll be, it'll be interesting to immerse yourself in it.
Mhm.
And you'll be good enough at it to at least make a reasonable living. And even if you don't make, if you don't kill it or just make a living, at least you like what you do. So kind of for me, that's the that was the life goal. And I can say like from an older perspective, looking back, or if I'm talking to my kids about what I think they should do, a lot of it is like for me, I can like at this point, I took 100 level accounting classes in college, and they were miserable. I couldn't stand it. But now I'm super interested in accounting. Now because I found that passion through something that I really liked. Like
Mm.
I think that if they could make education based kind of more around that, like, okay, little Marta, what are you interested in? And then say, okay, well, here's how all this other stuff relates to red tricycles or whatever it is, then it would just make, it makes learning more interesting. So at this point, like I'm super interested, I absolutely love jujitsu. But it made me kind of see the whole puzzle
Mm.
around maybe the whole business, like, okay, how does sales fit into this? How does teaching philosophy fit into this? How does accounting fit into this?
Mhm.
How does cleaning the mats,
Mhm.
So it's not like, oh, you just have to do what you love, which is, I think, where people get kind of lost in the
Yeah.
weeds. But you have to find, I'm not saying you have to. If you can find a passion
Mm.
around your life, then it really just changes the whole game because you don't really like, if I think back, I don't feel like I ever worked,
Mhm.
and now that seems kind of unfair because I have a daughter who's 18, just got out of high school, and she works in a restaurant right now, and she says, Dad, hopefully they're not listening. No, she's like, it's a grind. Like, oh God, I have to go to work. And I'm like, come on, I loved working in the restaurant. But then I was talking to my friend who owns a restaurant, and he was like, no, you didn't. He's like, you remember it fondly because you got paid well,
Yeah.
but you didn't actually love, being a server. He said, which is probably why it's so important for people to do. Because I think one of the things, that people have a hard time with is that we're all in service. I don't care what level of job you have. I don't care if you're the president of the United States, you serve the country.
Yeah.
And if the country decides you're doing a shitty job, they fire you.
Yeah.
And that's the same for every one of us. There's no profession I know of where you're not, because if you don't serve people, then why should anybody give you their hard-earned money?
Mhm.
So I kind of got in the weeds there a little bit.
No, this is great. I love that. It's a really good like separation or distinction between, yes, you need to find something that you love and the infamous and you will never work a day in your life. But on the same hand, it's finding how to, through the thing that you love, add the other things that can build what you're building, like accounting or the different things.
Hey, let me ask you a question. Would you like to be my next guest on the Empowered Woman podcast? Do you have a story you'd like to share? Want more visibility for your business on a show ranked in the top 0.5% in the world? Well, then head on over to martasburg.com/podcast guest for more information.
Even if you're, I don't care what it is you do, when I was a busboy or a waiter in a restaurant, it was like, okay, how can I handle all these tables, keep everybody happy, keep the kitchen happy, just manage that whole process in like an artful and effective way. And so you find passion in that. And I think that it's tough for people because they're like, passion, like what the hell is passion?
Yeah.
Like, how am I going to find passion in life? Like, they just don't find it.
Yeah.
And I would say then, and that's what happens as a young person, because you graduate high school, and I'm kind of stuck in this phase because my kids are in that age right now. But you're in high school and people are like, well, what do you love doing? And they're like, I don't know, I love playing.
Yeah.
So find me a way to get paid to play, and like, that was kind of what I did. I just played, but I stayed curious, and hopefully if you can stay curious just about life, that you can find passion in being curious. And maybe through that, hopefully you find something that you actually love. Right. And if you don't, then at least you're, hopefully out there being curious and making it happen.
Absolutely. Yeah. Staying curious and being willing to learn and all of that will take you far. What were some of the challenges that you encountered in building the business in any capacity, whether it be as you started opening more centers or whatever comes to mind?
Adam, and the first challenge was I moved back from Brazil. I don't come from a family of any means, so I had to figure out how to convince somebody to rent me a space. But I had no history. I had reasonable credit because I did some smart things growing up. I stayed out of debt.
Nice.
Right. I like to travel and be free, and all that was super important to me. So I stayed out of debt. I didn't I stayed free from relationships, and I didn't have any kids. This is what I tell my kids, right? Don't get pregnant, or don't get someone pregnant until you're ready, right? That's a wonderful thing. I can't fathom not having kids, but like, it's a nice thing to do it when the timing's right. And I'm sorry if I'm getting
no.
Don't get into debt. So if you can keep yourself relatively free, it leaves you a lot more options. You don't get put in a corner so fast. Look, if you do, that's awesome. I mean, there's definitely some benefits to, maybe you end up with a kid at a super young age. I have some friends who are grandparents and are great friends with their kids because their kids are old. Yeah. And, they had a kid when they were 17, and that worked out great for them. That's awesome. But for me, it was like, kind of watch your debt, watch, your commitments, so you have more optionality. And if you keep those options open, you can kind of make better decisions, or different decisions, because I don't want to say better, because life happens.
Right. Okay. So finding the space was a challenge to begin with.
Oh yes, sorry, I got totally in the weeds. So I didn't have any money, so I had to I look at my first business plan, which was all I had. And I was presenting it to like landlords, and just finding a landlord that was willing to even look at this like chicken scrawl, because I wasn't exactly the most organized human. So I had this little business plan that I presented and trying to get him to rent me a space. And then honestly, it was easy because I loved not only teaching jiu-jitsu, but like, I loved doing jiu-jitsu. I loved competing, but I loved sharing it with others and just seeing that like moment in their eyes where they're like, whoa, this is cool. So that was amazing, but I had to just get the space around it to do it. I was working bouncing in a bar, which is maybe the worst job on the planet from my perspective, just to kind of make ends meet. But within a month, I had everything rolling. Nice. And then it's like around the processes of running the school, which is a whole, set of things like who's going to clean the mat, and so like I said, I cleaned the mat because it's important to me that the mat is clean for all the students. Who's going to do the books, and this, how are we going to get people enrolled? Nobody knew what jiu-jitsu was back in the day. So how are we going to present jiu-jitsu to people in such a way that they're going to be like, well, why should I do this instead of karate? And I was a purple belt at the time, and people be like, yeah, my 9-year-old niece is a black belt in Taekwondo. Like, why would I? Well, you're a grown adult with a purple belt. So that seems silly, but it was just a very different thing.
Yeah.
So, then organizing the processes around that, trying to figure out the accounting, taxes, all this stuff. And then, when I went to school number 2, okay, how can I be in 2 places at the same time? I can't. So now I have to figure that puzzle out. Yeah. And then it was, there was a lot about relationships and people that work with you and if they're on the same team or not. I mean, we're in the people business. I could go stories of both amazing and disastrous humans that I've had the pleasure of dealing with the whole time. And if you focus too in on the negative side of that, you can get in the weeds. Absolutely. And it can go south because you're going to run into some horrible humans. But like, that's part of it. You have to kind of smile and enjoy that too. Like without the struggle, then it would make life boring. Absolutely. So you have to, I'm grateful for the, kleptomaniacs and freaking psychopaths that have passed through our doors. But you have to learn how to kind of weed them out to create a culture that people are going to want to be a part of. Yeah. And it's hard because if you're a teacher, you love people, right? So, I kind of I want to think that I can help everybody. But I have this idea that people think reasonably like I believe I do, or that they think like I do. So they're like, why would that person do that? There's no way they would think like that. Like, and you keep toxic humans around. And that's, one of the worst traps we can get in. So as the organization grew, we did have to kind of weed some people out. And some of those people I really like, but they just weren't great for the environment. And so frankly, a lot of it for me was finding the right people with the right skills to do the right things, that were in line enough with what I wanted to create. Yeah. But at the same time had the fortitude or the skills to do the things that I either wasn't good at or didn't want to do, or just the perspective that would help the organization and the school grow as a whole to service the community in a better way.
Yeah, no, that's great. I love asking these questions and having people talk about the challenges because regardless of what type of business you have, they will come and you will have to handle people. And you have to be grateful for that as well, because those are lessons. And then now you will know how to handle it in the future or whatever it may be. But then there will be the awesome, rewarding pieces as well. And that was the next thing I was going to ask you. Is there a specific story, either of somebody that worked with you or still does, or maybe a student, a family, anything that has stuck with you or maybe that is top of mind right now that you would like to share of transformation or something that really touched you in this process?
God, I mean, there's so many, I almost don't know where to start. But, one of my really good, we've had so many, kids that you get to work with and watch them turn into amazing adults. Yeah. And the opposite, like kids that you work with and really grow to love. And, I had to write a letter for a judge the other day for a kid whose life went super south, and he was a great kid. So it can be tough. Yeah. But, one of my really good friends, if I'm going to think of a story, Jeff Suskin, he runs a lot of the food events in town, Top Taco and all that, and he does an amazing job. And they used to have a company called Dining Out Magazine, where they would kind of work with restaurants and promote restaurants in the local region. And there was a day when he was on the mat and he was mounted and he was getting beat up and he was, he was about to give up and I just said, Jeff, you can't give up. Like, what, you're just going to lay there and do nothing? Like, you have to fight. Like, I don't care if you're getting beat up. Like, you can't stop. And I was kind of harsh on him. And I think he really took it to heart. And then afterwards he said, man, I thought about it. And I'm not trying to say that I was some great visionary. I just got lucky and, pushed him in a way that happened to help him, But, and then he said, I thought about it. And I was about to throw in the towel on my business because it was just too much. I was going to go get a job being an editor for some random magazine. And he said, man, he's right. I can't just give up. I can't stop. And he chased after it, and I think it worked out great for him. So it's those little wins
Mm.
that, that maybe you influence people in a positive way, which is, it's difficult because especially, and I don't know, we always say especially today, but it's not that way. It's always the same. Like when I was a kid, it was another thing we were stressed about or freaked out about.
Yeah.
You you can see life from different perspectives, and the same people can be experiencing it. Once I took Jeff Suskin to Brazil, and we were sitting in an internet cafe. It was probably 1999 or 2001. And he was writing a letter back home at an internet cafe or an email. And he was like, I wrote my email first, and I wrote like, hey mom, or whoever it was I was writing, like, yeah, I'm having a good time, training, hanging out on the beach, all the regular stuff, blah blah blah, but everything's good. Hope you're well. And then I looked over at his, and he was like, it's so amazing. Like, we watched the sunrise and the beach and the people and the food. And like, I looked at it and I was like, damn, I want to be like having his experience, not mine. And it wasn't that I was having that, but you can look at the exact same situation. And there's people that, that are really appreciating it and just picking out the things that really make it interesting. And then there's people that are kind of like Debbie Downer, and they're in the same room, but they're not having the same experience.
Right.
And I don't think you entirely get to choose all of that yourself, but you do a little bit, like for me, I do get to choose it a lot. But I'm just saying that maybe not everybody's chemical makeup, experience, history. So I'm not trying to like belittle people that aren't able to make that happen, because I hate when people say, Marta, all you got to do is this. It's so easy. And you're like, guess what? It's not that freaking easy. And then make somebody feel horrible. But I think that if you can look for the positive in things, that you can, you can really make things, you can change your perspective in a very positive way, and your whole experience gets better. Yeah. So that's something that I always remind myself, because, I feel very fortunate. Like, I've worked very hard. I also won what I like to call the egg lottery, because I could have been born in, sub-Saharan Africa, in some place where it was not so easy. And I had parents who loved me, and it's easy to think of people who I might think, oh, well, they had it so much easier. But man, there's a lot of suffering in this world. And, I think what I think of when I think most of that is somebody who really helped me out when I lived in Brazil, Adamir. He had nothing. Worked his ass off for about $600 a month and worked hard 6 days a week, all the time. I mean, grind. Then came home, did all the maintenance, hard work in the house just to make ends meet. And he used to play the lottery every single week. And I was like, dude, Adamir, you're just wasting your money. Like, the odds that you win the lottery are just, it's not going to happen. Mm-hmm. It seemed like such a waste. He had no extra money, yet every week he's going there. And he looked at me and he said, Amal, if I don't play the lottery, I can't even dream about ever making any money or being rich. And in that moment, I was just like, fuck, like, look how privileged I am, that I couldn't see that. And, it changed my perspective, because really changed my paradigm, because not everybody is so fortunate. And like, man, maybe you have to pay $10 a week to dream. Yeah. And for some people, that's kind of all they have. So if we have the fortune to have a computer and be listening to this awesome podcast, if I could say that, because I'm on it, so I don't know, but you are, so it is for sure. But if we have that fortune, then there's something going all right in our life.
Absolutely. No, that is so true. It's a matter of perspective, and we get to choose our perspective. Before we wrap up and you tell us how people can connect with you and learn more about Easton, I like to ask all my guests my $1 million question. Are you ready? So typically, because the name of the show is The Empowered Woman, when I have women guests, I ask, what is an empowered woman to you? But when I have my guy guests, I ask, what is an empowered human to you?
What is an empowered human? It revolves around somebody who's a lot of what I've talked about, somebody who's curious and not afraid to go out and do what they want to do and be who they want to be. And, like, everybody has a different makeup. Some people are much more introverted. Some people are much more extroverted, but just having the confidence to go through life and appreciate who you are and find out what your talents are. because not everybody's the same. Not everybody's going to have, like I can't just tell people this is what you do. Everybody's going to have to find their way. I have, like I said, an 18-year-old daughter myself. And so I try to look like, and a 15-year-old son. But I try to look like, how are they going to make their way in today's world? And part of it's like you have to find out what you enjoy about life, because if you can't enjoy life, then, why bother? Frankly, we're not, in my mind, we serve others. And then by serving, if you serve enough people and get enough people what they want, they're going to give you what you want, And so you serve others, and that helps enrich your life. But you have to find what your talent, what your skill, what your interest is, what makes you smile.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, that's being empowered.
Yay. I love that. That's so good. How can people connect with you? I know you're on Instagram, and tell us more how people can learn more about Easton Training Centers.
Look, you can check out eastonbjj.com. You can contact me embarrassingly easily on Instagram. I got to get off it. But, man, you message me on Instagram, I'm going to see it. So send your love, send your hate. We just did actually kind of a little bit mini documentary about my life, which was kind of fun. It's called Easton. It's going to come out in the next 6 months.
Awesome.
I'm not too hard to find with the internet.
Cool.
Don't show up at my house, please.
No. Yeah, let's just focus on the online space. I'll make sure and put all of that in the show notes. Thank you so much for your time. This was so cool to learn more about you and about what you've built. I appreciate it.
Show notes, come train, come to one of the Easton Training Centers. I think we have a great environment. If it gets you, it'll change your life, hopefully in a positive way.
Yes, absolutely. I agree.
Thanks so much for having me on the show. It was great to connect with you.
Thank you.
Thanks so much for tuning in today. I hope this episode empowered you. And if you enjoyed the show, please join the Empowered Woman community on Facebook and share with friends, or leave a review on iTunes so more people can discover this empowering message. Until next time, bye.